All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I apologize. I was too busy feeding my face, and so it is 12:17. I'd like to call the meeting of the Northeast Independent School District School Health and Advisory Council to order. Let the record show that a quorum of SHAC members is present. This meeting is in compliance with Section 28.004 of the Texas Education Code and applicable board policy. The council meeting today will address only topics on the agenda. No other topics will be discussed during the meeting. SHAC meetings are open to the public. Guests wishing to address the SHAC may also do so by emailing the SHAC committee at shac@neisd.net. Any persons that cause disruption during the meeting will be asked to leave. Thank you for your cooperation.
Please remember, health-related issues can sometimes generate passionate discussions with very different viewpoints. Remain calm and respectful throughout the process. Listen carefully with an open mind to identify critical facts and statistics that should be considered in decision-making rather than over-relying on opinions and emotions. Keep NEISD students' health as your top priority to help discussions stay on track.
All right, the first item on today's agenda is the review and possible approval of the March 19th, 2025 SHAC meeting minutes. Yes.
Have that corrected for her.
Okay. All right, and tell me the name again. Sharon Glosson. Okay. Okay. All right. Is there a motion made to approve the March 19th, 2025 minutes with the correction of the spelling on Sharon Glosson's with two S's? We have a motion. All right, Debbie. Do we have a second? We have a second. All right. Well, all those in favor say aye, raise your hand. All right. All those opposed, raise your hand, say nay. And the ayes have it.
To my credit, I raised my hands both times, so I meant it for the first time.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the standing committee reports. If I can go ahead and have classroom health and sex education lead off.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Christy.
Hi. So, classroom health and sex ed, we did meet during our, we met separately just to go over some things that some ideas that Katie had for health. And so some of the things that we talked about and all agreed upon as a committee was the tex ed resource for TED resource for health teachers, which provides teachers with resources to use to increase rigor and reach analysis techniques in the classroom. Some of the videos that we watched and agreed that would be helpful are how staying up all night affects your brain. I feel like we can all agree that that might be helpful for our kiddos to see. How to stop being bored and start being bold. Motivation and BUT, as in YOU, over beauty. And then there's a screenager documentary that we're looking to maybe be shown. We haven't figured out just yet. I think there's still more research on how to get that shown in the district. There are a few ways to go about that, but that's something that we're, yes. Yes, kind of like, I know that the district has done similar things where there's like families can come and screen different documentaries or shows or movies, not like fun movies. I'm not talking about like Disney, but like, yes. I can't remember what some of them have been, but I know we get the emails about them. So it's like that, where families can come and watch these informational sessions, and it would be a screening, and so we're looking into how to get that done, if possible. Another thing that we talked about was kids teach kids, right? And it's a 21-day snacking challenge, and this would be, it's an optional thing. If teachers wanted to do this, they could, and they would be encouraging their classes to take part of this 21-day challenge. The kids would sign up with their parents. It wouldn't be like through the school, but they would be promoting this. And it ties in all the grades, all the kids, even like the culinary students, to talk about how to make snacks. You're pledging to eat healthy snacks for 21 days. That would be the pledge that the child would make along with the parents' permission. And then there are incentives for teachers. So this would be beneficial for in the district. And that's what we talked about. That's it.
Great, thank you so much. Next on the agenda, fitness and physical activity.
Unfortunately, Lori couldn't make it. She had something come up at work. As far as our committee goes, we're working on trying to get feedback on the elementary recess changes that were passed last year by the board. Moving forward, we're going to be working more on middle school as far as before school and during school breaks for those students. And lastly, we've been submitting suggestions for bylaw revisions and changes for review. Short and sweet.
All right, great, thank you so much. Okay, next up is nutrition.
So our last committee meeting, we did not have a robust attendance, myself included. Several of us were missing. So the meeting was very efficient and more of a get to know you for some of our newer members. So to come from nutrition.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, healthy schools.
Okay, so in our last session, we started getting together questions for a survey to potentially send out to middle school staff about the cell phone use or non-use, like what their feedback is on what they think of it and what their current policies are and stuff like that. And then we thought after middle schools, maybe move on to high schools.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, next on the agenda is the presentation regarding the Youth Aware of Mental Health Awareness Program. Unfortunately, Dr. Garcia, or Rose Garcia, the director, was not able to make the meeting, so we are going to table this presentation until another time. And so that moves us to the discussion on possible action. Again, we'll table that. And now that puts us all the way down to item number 6 on the agenda, discussion and possible action regarding the proposed bylaw changes to submit. The chairperson, the Board of Trustees will consider this for the 2025-2026 school year. So,
Did Mitch include any that have been submitted?
yes.
Oh, good, yes.
I was trying to do my bewitched, going squiggling my nose, or all right. So thank you very much for those that sent in some comments and proposed suggestions. The first one is seen here on the screen, Article 3, under meetings in Section 2. The proposed is to cross out the sentence in red. The SHAC will provide an opportunity for a minimum of 4 standing committee meetings as needed in addition to the regularly scheduled SHAC meetings. And the proposed suggestion is that standing committees will meet after each full SHAC meetings if time allows. Is there any discussions on, I know that some of the committee members got the proposed changes from last fall when we first reviewed when we reviewed this, the bylaws as a full SHAC, just to kind of give you some guidance as to what the bylaws looked like before and then what the bylaws have been changed to. So is there any discussion on this change? Yes. Sure. So yes, like Debbie said, as that we've always met after, the standing committees have always met after the full SHAC meetings. Okay. All right. Then if we don't have any, oh yes, you do have a comment.
I thought the last time we discussed this, even this year, was that we were gonna stop and allow time every single one of these. Am I remembering incorrectly?
So at the beginning of our meetings, we voted to require a minimum of 30 minutes for the standing committee work, if at all possible. And so I think that's still the intent, but we wanted to at least, I guess the proposed mention to this was that the bylaws state that there is a minimum of 4. The current bylaws state that there's a minimum of 4 meetings, and then additional meetings should be scheduled. Moving forward, and that was based off of an abbreviated time frame, because obviously we haven't met as a full SHAC until the beginning of this semester. So next year, for next year's SHAC, according to the bylaws, they would only meet 4 times, where it should be 4 times for the semester. So I think that was the reason for the proposed change. And if I'm speaking out of turn on whoever made the suggestion.
It was me. Yeah, in the past, like Sean knows and Tony knows and a lot of the people who've been on SHAC for a while know, is that we would have standing committee time after the full SHAC meeting. However, as far as setting aside a specific amount of time, I mean, and it sounds good on paper, but like say we have items that fitness and physical activity want to put forward, or your committee wants to put forward, it may run a little bit over, or maybe the presenter runs a little bit over, that sort of thing. So it's just whatever time we have available, and then if we want to, as a standing committee, we can also choose amongst ourselves to maybe stay a little bit longer, or even come earlier. You know, that we've got that flexibility. But bottom line is that we should go back to having it be a continuation. Like if we finish up early here today, there's no reason why we couldn't have standing committee time.
Agreed. So any other comments regarding this? All right, then we'll just go ahead and move on to the next one. Was oops, I'm sorry, same slide. The highlighted was to not to exceed 2 per month regarding the standing committees. I know last year we had a standing committee, the Chase standing committee. They met every week, and so I think we might consider including this, or if you'd like to strike it and just, again, the whole idea is we had a lot of work to do. The Chase Committee had a lot of work to do the last 2 years. And so they made a decision as a standing committee to meet every week to get things done. And so we're going to put it in black in the bylaws. It's in black and white. Do we want to include not to exceed 2 per month? That way you don't stress out the the committee members. No comments?
Wait,
Okay.
I guess I'm just confused. So
Yep, you-
sorry, I didn't know. Isn't this in the Bible?
Raise your so you can get there you go.
What did you say, isn't it in the bylaws, Heather? I think that's new in the bylaws, but I think it is in the bylaws that the board recently passed. It makes me nervous having that as a bylaw rule, because I feel that, there were tactics used last year that, like people stalled to get an outcome. And I feel like this is what we're gonna allow to do. It's gonna be easier for people to manipulate, outcomes this way. That's my fear, but also it was, I think, really unfair and unjust for all of us to have to participate in that. I think it will exclude people if we meet so often, but I don't know. I just wanted to express that concern. Additionally, I know in Robert's Rules of Order, like we can, if 2 committee members want to have a meeting, we are allowed to do that, with certain rules, but that's, so then I feel like then are we not following Robert's Rules of Order if we leave this in the bylaws, like?
So-
We did have to have meetings, I mean, you were there.
Yes.
We faced this difficultness,
And that's why it's highlighted, because I wanted to bring it up and say again. I think that we could, if we as a full SHAC think that we do need to limit it to 2 per month, then we'll leave it in there. If you agree with what you're stating, in the fact that if a standing committee has a lot of work that needs to get done, and they need to meet 3 times in a month, then we probably should strike that and not limit it. So, are you making a proposal to strike the highlighted?
yes.
Oh.
So just so I'm up to speed, it's highlighted for discussion, and now we're just seeing what people think about it. We're not actually, like, okay.
So I think what we're trying to do is just trying to go through the proposed changes, and if we need to make another change, or feel like we want to make another change, then we can do that within the full SHAC. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to propose a friendly amendment to these bylaws, not to include this, not to exceed 2 per month. I feel like it's always really tricky. I've done a fair amount of bylaw writing too over the years, and if the idea is to try to avoid abuse, it just seems like no matter what you do, something can be abused, and so a simpler setup is preferable. Then the committee can try to act reasonably. I mean, I run through all these sort of nightmare scenarios in my mind. So the committee gets together once, but then someone that really wanted to be there couldn't get there, and so they say, oh no, let's just meet again next week. But we've already had 2 meetings, so now we can't meet again. And just like, and then the committee can't do what it wants to do because, it's in the bylaws. And I mean, there are I guess you had problems last year with in the other direction, but it's really hard to solve this by putting language in like this. So I would just put up for discussion that since this is not in the bylaws right now, I would recommend that it not be added.
Okay. All right. So with that was the friendly amendment to go ahead and strike through the highlighted not to exceed 2 per month. Yes, please.
I agree that maybe it doesn't need to be as specific, but as a person who was on that subcommittee, some kind of language to back us up would have been really helpful. Because we did meet every single week, and those meetings lasted anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. And so if there was some kind of reasonable limit, I would have been very thankful for that. So I mean, just as a discussion point.
And like I said, there it does say, or for other reasonable purposes. So we'll leave it as a strike through. Okay, the next item. This was actually, I thought, was a great ad. Consistency. So in the bylaws, sometimes it was capitalized standing committees with standing being capitalized as well as committee, the C in committee, and then other spots it was standing committee with just the standing being capitalized, and then somewhere else in the standing committees were both lower cased. So I think we're going to go ahead and get that one. That's a kind of just a cleanup. We can do that. Anybody else have any comments, questions, concerns? All right, we'll move on. Okay, the next under Article 3 for meetings, Section 7. We have discussed this. The full SHAC meeting or full SHAC and standing committees will vote using a numbered, randomized, and anonymous paper ballot. The idea is to take out the paper ballot because it does take 10 to 15 minutes for every vote. And then a little bit later down, it says a member must be present in order to vote. All votes shall be anonymous, and at no time shall record votes be taken, as opposed to at no time shall a record of individual votes be taken. Again, the background there is we wanted to prevent for someone to call a roll call, so that because all of these meetings are televised or recorded and then posted on the NEISD website, if you had a roll call vote, or if you voted by raising your hand, then the whole public would know exactly who voted for what measure, and even if it was a staff member. And we wanted to protect I can't even say the word. Anonymity. Thank you. I was saying we wanted to protect the anonymity of the vote on a decision-making process. And so the whole idea of having votes like approving the minutes and not having to have a paper vote, because again, by a letter of the law, the way it's written in black and white, we should have paper ballots even on approving the minutes. And we voted earlier in our full SHAC meeting not to do that. And so what we want to do is make this a change in the bylaws so that we can know when to vote by hand or voice ballot versus when to vote with a paper ballot, or even a possibility of doing something via phone, where as long as everybody at the table has a login and it's not posted to where anybody that's watching could then also vote. I don't want to do all the talking, but that's kind of the process. Is there any comments or questions as to the proposed changes here? No comments? All right. Then we'll go ahead and move to the next item. Okay, under Article 4, membership, Section 5, the proposed change was to have each trustee appoint 5 members as opposed to just the 4 members to the SHAC. It would, and the rationale was increasing to 5 instead of 4 would allow for the flexibility when picking standing committee members in the 4 different standing committees, also helping to facilitate that member's interest and or expertise to align with the committee available, also to increase the attendance, because as you remember from the last meeting, and we were kind of short on on members. We had enough for the quorum, but we were still short on the actual standing committee membership, and so that's the rationale there. Any comments? Yes, in the back, Sean.
The hard copy that I'm looking at does not match what's on the screen. Because I had a comment about something that happens before that, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
Do you want me to comment?
If you, yes, please.
Okay. On page 3 that had been sent out that I'm looking at, where it talks about membership, I'm just curious how many community members there are, and this does affect me, but it affects everyone.
Sure.
Have kids. Because this is stating that if you're a community member, you cannot be a parent with school-aged children in or out of the district. And that doesn't make sense to me. Board members are allowed to have kids. Dr. Micah has kids. I don't know if all of them have graduated, but they're in the district. And yet he can make policy, and he has opinions. And those of us that are community members, I don't think that should be a prerequisite. District employees that are on our subcommittees all have kids. And I would think, when I commented on this and it came out last year, my 17-year-old overheard me talking to my husband, and he goes, "Mom, I'm sorry, but doesn't that give you skin in the game if you're a parent?" So if my 17-year-old can get it, I don't understand why that's here. This is on page 3.
But just to clarify, was there an amendment proposal for that one? Or are you just bringing up that bylaw?
Well, I don't know, it has comments here with what it was supposed to be. That's,
I think you might be looking at the reference bylaws we sent out just for reference.
okay,
So you're talking about the discussion we had last year.
probably.
Okay.
I missed a SHAC meeting, so.
No,
that
that's
might have
okay.
been when that
I
happened.
think to your point, some people were asking for history of how some of these bylaws now are written. So we included a reference that we had used last year when we turned in our bylaw suggestions to the previous board. So I think that's the piece you're looking at. And then there's a second piece of the 2025, which is this one. These are the recommendations we're making this year. You're looking at the recommendations we discussed last year.
So that is not true then?
Help me
If it's
understand.
not true then.
So it is true that we
Yeah.
had that discussion. It is true that we sent, I believe we did not actually vote on that piece. We just sent both of our opinion A, opinion B. And then the board brought that up in August and discussed it and voted on it. So the current bylaws address what you're speaking to. But no one has made a suggestion to amend that yet this year, if that makes sense.
Let me take a look at what I have.
Sure.
The reason it's mismatched is because these are the ones that have been proposed for this year. And that's what was proposed last year.
Sure. Are there any other comments with regards to the proposed change of this one from going from appointing 4 members to 5 members. I don't see any comments or questions. Would that affect what you're thinking in, from the standpoint of whether a community member has a child that's in the NEISD or not? Because I think that I agree. I think that was something that was addressed by the Board of Trustees. Right, so they deleted that completely. Correct. It's just, I think, like I said, there just may have been confusion. Right. All right, so I guess by acclamation, are we okay on the proposed change from appointing 4 members to 5 members? All right, by acclamation. Yes.
No, that was purposeful, was to leave, it's still a majority of parents, but it was to allow for the flexibility for the board member to decide how they wanted to handle the categorization. If it's 3 parents, 2 community members, if it's all 5 parents, 1 community.
It says you can only have 7 community members, so then how are you gonna have?
Oh wait, apologies. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, wait, sorry. Maybe that was. Okay, so then it would be 4 parents.
Because you're limited unless you change that.
I see what you're saying. Gotcha. That's a good question.
I don't know if this is true, but I thought that I heard that one of the reasons for this change was to have a parent
On each of the standing committee.
And then if that were true, it would need to be 4 parents and only 1 community member per SMD. But I didn't write this. I thought that's what
I think that was something we discussed in our standing committee. Let me think. I have to go back and do the math now because. Yes, that would also be a change. Great catch. You must be a math major. Okay, so the friendly amendment to this change would be to change a maximum of 40 to 45 so that the math works out. And then
I was like, I don't know. So 7 times. So 5 times 7 is plus 4. Am I doing this right?
42.
Okay.
I like that. That's a
Mental
good
math.
round number as
Sorry.
opposed to an odd number. No, that's good.
So I am kind of struggling with the friendly amendment. May I ask some questions?
Go ahead.
Okay, I think the piece was what our committee, the physical fitness committee, brought this forward. One of the things that we spoke to was trying to make it easier overall to appoint people in case, so that we weren't locking everybody in as far as the trustees. So I'm open to thoughts of keeping it very vague, like we take that 7 community members out. As long as the majority are parents, I think is the important piece of the appointments for that district SMD. I'm just trying to make it easier. I guess is what I'm getting at. And so if we're locking in four parents and every parent has to sit on a committee member, we're still kind of locking ourselves in. And I guess my thought is if somebody doesn't want to sit on Chase, but yet that's the only place for them to sit, you're forcing them to sit on a very robust committee. And I guess that's the piece of that I would get concerned of. And I also don't want to get too granular trying to think of all the problems to solve, because I get that's hard too. But I guess that was part of the piece, was just to increase the membership and the majority be parents, however that may fall.
Yeah, and so again, going back to this, I think that the intent is to, if you had a community member but also a parent from the same SMD that wanted to serve on one of the standing committees, this would allow you to do that without necessarily swaying the vote from the standpoint of overexposure from that one SMD within that standing committee. And so
I just wanted to say something very quickly. I did watch the board meeting, I think it was over the summer, where they deliberated quite extensively over this topic specifically. And I think that all of the things that we're saying are things that they said during their meeting. And they left it to kind of, the way I understood it when watching the board meeting back then, was that they were gonna experiment. So I'm almost feeling like they might be, I don't know that we need to recommend, because that's all we would be doing is making a recommendation for what we think would work, where maybe we can just like offer unsolicited.
no, that's, well,
Like, an unsolicited, like, hey, this is what we experienced this year, because I just feel like they did discuss this just like we did, and there was discussion over limiting, like, if they do to 2 community members, so if you have multiple SMDs with 2 community members and 3 parents, you may have 1 or 2 standing committees without a majority of parents, because if the parents don't wanna sit on that, and then only community members are, then now you, so I think they discussed all that. I sort of feel like, instead of recommending a bylaw change, like offering our experience, because they specifically said that they left it open so that they can make these changes once they figure out how things happen this year.
sure. And I agree with what you're saying, but again, that's exactly what we're trying to do here within the SHAC, is we're coming up with recommendations that we believe will make us work more efficiently, and making sure that we have enough members to actually get the work done is something that is required. We have to have a quorum, whether it be within the full SHAC or a quorum even within the standing committees. And if we don't have enough members in the standing committees to get work done, then whatever discussions that are being held in that standing committee, they can't be acted upon. It can only be discussed. And so, Christy, as you stated, we're making a recommendation as a full SHAC. We think these changes will allow us to work more efficiently. We're going to propose it to the Board of Trustees, and they're the ones that are acting on it. We could make this recommendation to the Board of Trustees, and they can say, you know what, I agree with the SHAC on this, on the voting. I agree with the SHAC on the First Amendment from a standing committee versus capitalized, but within regards to this, we're keeping it the same, because they're the ones that get paid the big bucks. I'm sorry, you don't get paid. They're the ones that get voted upon, and they make the policy. We just make the recommendations. Yes, Sean, get back to work. Did you your shoes off.
I'm trying to do the math here too. If we've got no fewer than 28 members,
You'd have to say 35.
and second sentence, shall have no more than 28 parent or legal guardian members and no more than 7. 28 and 7 is 35. And if you have at least one district employee for each standing committee, yes, somebody's keeping up with the math, good, John. So 30, I'm coming up with 39, so how are we jumping to 42?
Well, we're going to have to increase. We actually missed that 28 parents, legal guardians. It would have to go up because if we're going to have 5 members, then that would be 4 parents, right?
No.
Well, 5 members, period, they can decide to divvy up.
We're not gonna change it to
If there's
4?
Seven board of trustees.
I'm so confused.
okay, 7 times 5 is 35. And if you add 4 district employees as the minimum, that would be 39. So I'm not too sure where we're jumping up to 42.
Bad math.
Is that my math? Is my math right?
I think the simpler thing to do, 7 times 4 is 28, and that's your parents, so the 3 needs to be a 4. Because now they're nominating 4 parents, 1 community member, that gets you your 35, and then the 4th district, and then you've got your number of 39.
I like the math on that one. Okay, we're changing the 3 to a 4 on the number of parents / legal guardians.
Because that gets you to your 28 parents and legal guardian members.
Correct. And then the community member, it would be 7,
And that's
1 per trustee, and then the 4 staff members for the 4 standing committees.
But your language in the second sentence says they shall have no more than 28 parents. But really, in the last sentence, we're saying the trustee could actually, all 5 of their members could be parents. So that sentence, those numbers don't add up to your total. They should add up to more than your total. Right? So it could be 5 times, what, 7? Could be the total.
Maybe we say should have no less than. Can we do it the other way?
If you, I mean, the cap is if every trustee did all 5 of their members as parents, there really is no cap to the number of parents, so that, I don't know, why do we have that? I don't think that first part belongs in there. If you want to cap the number of community members, you could, but I thought the whole thing was to keep it easier. I almost think that sentence should just be, the SHAC shall have at least 1 district employee for each standing committee. Boom. Don't worry about caps or minimums. You're letting you put your cap on with, they must have at least 4 parents. Right?
Okay, that makes sense.
I would take out the at least and as a strike through as well. So the SHAC will have 1 district employee for each standing committee. All right, so do we look good here? Any other discussion?
Everybody has to have 5 because there's 6 times 5, that's gonna be 30 automatically. That 28 numbers won't match.
7? Are you talking about 7 SMDs? Where you come up with 6?
Because I'm new.
Okay.
So 7 times 5 makes 35, so is every
That's correct.
I mean, because there are times where they can't get someone right away,
Right.
So there are moments where an SME might not have 5 or 4.
Okay. So are we good? We can move on to the next slide? Do we have a next slide? Okay. All right. Under Article 5, we were just changing the word facilitator to administrative liaison. Any heartburn with that? Okay. Next slide. Let's see here. Standing committees serve the SHAC's decision-making process. Not sure what this is saying or means. Yeah, probably serve as, we get an add on the first sentence, or first sentence. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. All right. And the next slide. Okay. Great. Well,
Hey, hold on.
yes.
On that slide, real quick. Yeah, so standing committees serve as the SHAC's decision-making process. They are the focal point for SHAC activity. Broad community participation is sought for committees. They gather information, analyze available data, make recommendations to the SHAC, report to the SHAC. The SHAC may develop these recommendations into action items or SHAC vote. Okay, that makes sense. Well, I think different verbiage on decision-making process. Does that make sense? The rest of that is all correct. It's basically saying each of these standing committees are gathering information to present to the SHAC, and then they would decide action items from that. Is that where I'm reading that correctly? But we're not making the decisions, we're just bringing the information for potential action items for the SHAC as a whole. That's my thought, but we'll get smarter people.
No, I agree. I think you could switch it from decision-making process to work groups.
Okay.
How about just taking out that first sentence entirely and putting in stand committees are the focal point for SHAC activity? We're just basically defining what standing
Oh, there you go.
committee is, right? So just take out that first sentence entirely.
Someone with experience that knows.
And when they can see the forest and the trees.
There you go.
Way too much experience.
Oh.
And then also, I've got another question.
Actually, I was gonna suggest, what if we, cut out all the way to gather information? So standing committees gather information, analyze available data, make recommendations to the SHAC, and so on. And the reason for that is the sentence, broad community participation is sought for committees, I think could be read as people who are not members of the SHAC might wanna think they should be on the committee. It just seems like a weird sentence to me, so we're not gonna get rid of it.
Okay. That's a good add. Any other? Okay, you've got the strike. Yeah. All right. Does that look good? Okay. Okay, at this point, in the essence of time, yes.
There was something in the minutes about if someone or somebody did not get stuff in time, but I just have a general question. Just going through, who is responsible for reporting the membership to the board?
That is, the,
Falls under you.
it's me and the liaison.
I mean, I would think since everybody, Mitchell sends out the RSVPs for the meetings, that I would think that he's the administrative liaison at the top. To to the board, that would be solely on him, because people don't respond RSVP to you, do you? Do they?
No, they don't respond to me, but
And it maybe tells you who's been whatever, but I mean, it just seems like he should be the one, if he's the one that's gonna be sitting back and forth, he should be the one doing attendance. And from what I understand, attendance is not being recorded, so that's nowhere in the bylaws as far as who handles that and when is it being done. We've got a process in there by which someone can theoretically be removed from SHAC for missing X number of meetings, but we have nothing in there as far as who's keeping track of this attendance and who's reporting it to the board and to those individual trustees as far as the members not showing up.
sure. So you're correct. The administrative liaison does take the sign-in sheet that's in the back, as well as when you sign in to each of your standing committees, there's a sign-in sheet there, so that in case someone could make the meeting but then had to leave before they met in the standing committee, and then that quote-unquote attendance for the full SHAC as well as the standing committee attendance is being gathered, and then Mitch is supposed to send that to me, but also send it to oh gosh, all of a sudden
So I just want,
there's the administration.
Are y'all receiving attendance from?
At the last board meeting, we received our first, in our packet, our first list of attendance.
Okay, and then I'm just gonna throw devil's advocate out here, another question. You brought up the fact that we're signing in separately. We're signing this in for two separate meetings, even though it's full SHAC and presumably standing committee.
Correct.
I'd like to think that most people that are here for the whole, thing. I mean, emergencies happen, whatever. But signing in this to two separate committees, then does that fall into that attendance thing where if you miss so many meetings or whatever, if we're keeping these as two separate entities?
Yes, it does. It would fall into one, because if someone is showing up for the beginning of the meeting but then has to leave every time because of, say, another appointment.
I really hate to interrupt. Could we table this discussion? We have two presenters here for standing committees, and we have 10 minutes past our time. So these are all great points, but I really think
Right.
we need to table this and adjourn to get to standing committee time.
Okay, so at that point, like I said, in the essence of time, we are going to go ahead and table this. If there's any other comments, then please send them to your the chairs of each of the standing committees. The chair of the standing committee will then bring those to the executive board, and then we should be able to vote on the bylaws and have that proposed for the 2025-2026 school year. Oh, okay. The next item is we are going to have the next SHAC meeting on May 21st, 12:15, in which we will be able to vote on the bylaws and the other work that we need to do. If you'll look on the board, there are other different occasions coming up. April 22nd, school board trustees, or school bus driver appreciation, et cetera, et cetera. All right. With that, it is 12:11. I'm sorry. It is 1:11, and the SHAC meeting is adjourned. We are going to please break into your standing committees for a little bit of work. Thank you.